Good evening, everyone. Those who are joining us from all over the world. I am Alam Ahmed, and it's my great pleasure to start this roundtable series, part of our 18th International Conference of the World Association for Sustainable Development. We have introduced this roundtable discussion 3 years ago, and the idea behind this roundtable discussion is to try to stimulate the general public, also academic professionals, to try to be engaged with our global conference topic every year. And this year we are talking about the coronavirus, which is of no doubt the most important topic we are now living. And because of the lockdown, we tried our best to still continue and do these roundtable discussions, but we will do them remotely, as we have seen now. And there is no wonder the first of this roundtable discussion, we're going to discuss about the important or the critical, if you like, role of remote learning, because we are using it now to communicate with you in what we are doing here. And not only in the learning for the coronavirus or to try to combat this pandemic, but also in our own life. I mean, the entire life is now being shattered. Now, I'm very pleased and I'm very privileged to have three distinguished academics with me today and professionals from all over the world. I have Professor Manuel from the UK, from Cambridge. He's a leading expert in the e-learning and remote and learning and digital learning, and I will introduce him shortly. And I also got Professor Seema from India, from the University of New Delhi. She's an associate professor of economics, but she has done lots of work of commerce, business sector, and she has been involved in e-learning as well. And I also got on my colleague, Professor Abdulla Alhawaj, who is the founding president of Ahlia University in Bahrain, and he has been in academia for quite a long time. He used to be a professor of mathematics. Department in Bahrain, math.
Yes, University.
And he was the dean of the School of Mathematics in the University of Bahrain, and he has a long experience in the higher education. I would like to just tell you a few about you're all welcome, and I welcome you all from all over the world. Please type in any question you have, and I will see it here on the screen, and we will share it. If the question you feel is quite general, we can ask all our guests to contribute. If you have a specific one of our guests, you want him or her to address the question, we will be delighted to ask him specifically or her to answer it. And please share the link we have here, which is the World Association for Sustainable Development Facebook. It doesn't need any logging. Share it among your colleagues, friends, scholars all over the world. And please also, if there's any other comments, if there's anything we can help, because this is the first one, and we'll continue to do it. Now, my very brief introduction to this roundtable is, in this real world, we are being locked down for the last 3 weeks. And also, I want to remind every one of our viewers or people who are watching us from all over the world, China started suffering from this pandemic long time than us. So what we have witnessed now in the UK or in France or in Italy or in Spain or now going to Africa and the Middle East, this have actually started long time last year, 2019. But now people can realize the importance of us to communicate non-physically, like what we are doing now, so using remote software solutions. Even you can see universities have all changed their curriculum. We have been teaching students for the last 1 month on using different solutions, different systems, and so on. So I would like to start by giving the opportunity to Professor Manuel. Professor Manuel, I'm really grateful for your time. You are, in many people, they recognize you are one of the world leader or authority in this remote or distant learning or e-learning. And I think you have done lots of work. And Professor Manuel also, in addition to his work in developing this technology and involving in e-learning, he's also a visiting professor at the University of West of England. He has been an academic, and is still an academic as well. Professor, I would like to ask you, or I would like to invite you to address the roundtable by giving us a very brief introduction as possible about what do we know about e-learning. In a very brief historical overview, when did we start using e-learning, or when did we start communicating remotely like what we are doing now in every second? And secondly, my question to you, which I want you to address in your opening statement, have we all in the world got it right or got it wrong? What I mean by that, everyone now realizes the critical role of e-learning and remote learning, or how we are now solving our problems on a daily basis, hospitals, governments, everyone. Did we didn't know that in the past, or we just suddenly have no other option to communicate and to see each other like all the efforts we are doing? So what exactly happened in the world? So the floor is your, Professor.
Okay, that's an excellent question. And may I just I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with the other academic colleagues from all over the world. It is absolutely excellent that we're doing this, and I think that times of crisis like this, the more collaboration we can have across the world, the better we will be able to come out with innovative solutions to the new problems that we are dealing with. So to your question, I think it is all related really, the issue of learning, e-learning, and where we find ourselves right now. So in terms of learning, we know a lot about learning. We have done so much research at universities over hundreds of years on how people learn and what are the best conditions within which somebody can develop all the skills needed to learn something. And then e-learning came along. So in a distance learning form, it probably has been around about 60, 70 years. And in the e-learning, online learning form, it has been around more recently for the last, between 10 and 20 years. Now, the issue with e-learning has been that from the very beginning, people were tempted to do what was more straightforward to do with the medium. So the new context, the online context, the easiest thing to do on that was just to put materials up there for people to reach from different localities and geographies. The problem with that, in terms of learning, is that the collaboration element of learning went away very quickly. And not enough attention was paid as to the support that a person needs to learn things along the way. So it's not just about delivering content, it's about the whole experience and how you support someone through the learning process. That was the issue with the early forms of e-learning. And the problem with that is that has caused some sort of, in the early days, that caused some reputation for e-learning and online learning in the sense that it wasn't as good as face-to-face learning. Because all the other forms of learning that we have been using on campus and our schools and institutions across the world, we have so much experience of doing it. We have refined the way in which we are teaching people. But when everything was moved online, a lot of what we knew about how to get people to learn properly wasn't applied as well as we could have done. So those were the kind of the origins of e-learning. We've moved since, and now we have got different ways of doing it, and we have got better frameworks to operate, and we have kind of tried to bring into the learning process now all of those learnings that we've had accumulated previous to the advent of online learning. Now the situation we're finding ourselves in at the moment, particularly universities and other educational institutions, is that suddenly everybody has been forced to use this medium. And so before there was a big debate about whether on-campus learning is of higher quality, whether online learning could ever replicate on-campus learning, and suddenly all that question went away because we were left with no option. So all universities now, they have to teach remotely. All this happened right in the middle of an academic year with no warning. Everybody had to very quickly adjust and close their physical campuses and try to carry on teaching their students however they could online. So the debate on whether online learning could be done has gone away. And now the focus, I think, is going to be on the quality of the online learning experience. So on that sense, I think something quite positive could come out of this, because now that all institutions have been forced to use the medium, now there will be a lot more attention paid as to how we do this. How do we provide proper, really high quality education online? And the other consequence of this is going to be that if we do this properly, we're actually going to create educational institutions that are much more resilient in the future. What this crisis has demonstrated us is that we were not ready to face a situation whereby a campus had to close. We didn't have the contingency in place for that. All institutions have done what they could, and the effort has been excellent. But what has become clear is that these institutions were not resilient enough for this type of crisis. So another positive of all of these, I hope, will be that we are going to create much more resilient educational institutions that will be able to deliver high quality education in a much more flexible way, which will be better suited for the needs of our students in the future in any case. So although it has been a terrible crisis, and I hope the circumstances would be different, looking at the future, I have hopes that this is going to bring about positive change to education.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much. That's very enlightening start. Now, I will come back to you, Professor. Now, Professor Seema, given your tremendous experience in the Asian continent, you've been from the University of New Delhi, you have the loss of Wake, and also you are the next door to, or you are very close to China. China and India have lots of similarities. Particularly the only or the major approach being used worldwide is social distancing. So India and China in that sense. Now, to what extent you can add to Professor Manuel's introduction in terms of where are we in the developing countries in terms of e-learning? How useful do you think people in developing countries, and if you take India as a big country, what can you say here in this particular element of developing countries' perspective of using e-learning or remote learning, not just on learning or teaching, but also to address this global phenomenon now? Yes, Professor Seema.
Yeah. So I'll just start with the background and then I will come back to the topic. Okay. As all of us are aware that this COVID-19 virus, contagious virus, it originated from a city of Wuhan in China, and it spread from Wuhan to Italy to Iran to United States, and now it has wreaked havoc on 213 countries out of 240 member countries of United Nations. Not only this, it has impacted 1.8 million people around the globe. If we compare it with the World War II involved, it was the military conflict. It involved 30 countries, but this COVID virus, it has impacted more than 200 countries in the world, and it has given several shocks to the entire globe. It has given a human shock, it has given a demand shock, it has given a supply shock. So economies are in complete shock, and even education sector is not spared. In fact, our every day life is disrupted. It has disrupted education, entertainment, health, even human rights. These are disrupted. So the sudden shock which education sector has got in the developing countries, it has affected all the stakeholders in the education sector, including administrators, educators, students, parents, and caregivers. Because earlier they were used to this traditional style of teaching. Yes, ICTization was taking place from 90s in case of India also, but the component was quite small. Now what has happened over these last 4 months is that there was abrupt shift to online teaching because of the reason that because of this COVID-19, either the countries had to go for partial lockdown or complete lockdown to contain its spread. And because of that, education community, it got a great jolt, and they were left with no option but to shift to online learning. Because ultimately, what every country has to ensure at the present moment is that learning has to continue. And therefore, there is no option before a developing country or a developed country that how to manage this. They have to manage it some way or the other. So far as India is concerned, we are having enough e-learning resources. And the problem which we have been encountering right now is that how to motivate the teaching community and how to motivate the students and the other stakeholders to go for remote learning. So far as other developing countries are concerned in Africa or in Latin America. So what I feel is there are 4 or 5 main issues and challenges these countries have been encountering. First, major issue is that whether e-content is available with all these countries or not. For example, in case of India, it is available. We are having several initiatives of Government of India that e-content is available. Only the quality we have to ensure, and we have to maintain, and we have to sustain now to face the challenges which COVID has, given us. Second major issue which COVID-19 has posed before, developing nations is that what are the teaching methods? If the content is available, what teaching methods will be used? What teaching platforms will be used? Whether connectivity infrastructure is available in the form of, Wi-Fi, uninterrupted supply of Wi-Fi or not? Whether digital platforms are available or not? Or whether learning management systems are available or not? These are, the questions which they have been trying to handle at present. In addition to teaching methods, even if the teaching platforms are available, the next question which crops up before these countries is whether teachers and students are enough training to handle those platforms, to handle those new technologies or not. In addition to that, one major problem which these countries have been encountering is that there are cybersecurity issues. Even if they go for wider use of technology through video, through various video-based resources which are available like Zoom, Loom, WebEx, etc. So whether they are providing complete security, cyber security issues are there or not. Sometimes it has been observed even cyberbullying has been taking place. There are so many complaints against Zoom. So cyber security issues have cropped up over the past few months. In addition to that, it has been, as I have mentioned earlier, that motivation of the teachers and students is very, very important if we want to move towards remote learning, which Government of India has been trying to ensure through different channels. And the case with other countries, developing countries, one can easily assess that India is one of the rising stars of before the outbreak of COVID-19, that we were the second most fastest growing economy in the Asia Pacific. So the other developing countries are also facing this problem, that how to motivate the teachers, how to motivate the students, and how to motivate the parents and the caregivers to use these platforms and use these methods to ensure that learning should not get disrupted during this period of crisis. And the last issue before all these countries is psychological issues, because of the closures, because of the partial and complete lockdowns, psychosocial support system, whether it is in place or not, because it has been seen that over these past 3 months, mental health issues have cropped up. So whether counselors are there, their services are being provided. Only then we can, once they are in a state, students, teachers, and caregivers are in a state of mind that they can, think of shifting from face-to-face teaching to, online learning. It can take place only when they are in that state of mind. So I feel that these are the issues, but different countries, Indonesia, India, China, they have been trying to, manage it through adopting different methods. There are some commonalities somewhere, but different countries are different, levels, I would say.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Seema. And I think that's a very good transition point where I can really move to Professor Alhawaj. Now, Professor, you have a very long experience in higher education. You have founded the university, Ahlia University. But I would like to ask you, since Seema just nicely introduced this, if you like, in her introduction, she said, or she argued that different countries, respective of this crisis and using of e-learning, is different. Bahrain, or the Kingdom of Bahrain, has been cited by the World Bank report several times, particularly with the Knowledge Economy Index. Particularly in one particular pillar, which is ICT, Information and Communication Technology, Bahrain is being ranked very high. And in World Bank report itself, they said that Bahrain have managed to move on the scale of the Knowledge Economy Index, partly because of the ICT development and investment in ICT. So taking that into account, can you talk to us about what ICT did for Bahrain, or how Bahrain is capitalizing or its investment on information and communication technologies, and how Bahrain is actually leading the way, if you like, in that region in terms of ICT and e-learning, remote learning, given that you are leading a university in Bahrain?
First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you, Professor. Go ahead.
Yes. Of course, I will start, with the very famous two proverbs. It's a necessity is the mother of invention, and difficult times should lead to better days. So we want to look at things from a very positive side, Bahrain, the Kingdom of Bahrain in general, are very well advanced in the ICT. And we were very, very lucky that when the face-to-face teaching in Bahrain, and in particular in Ahlia University, the infrastructure is there, technologies are there, and for this reason, we feel that we were ready. So sometimes we take risks, but also we should always be ready for such a thing. So in the Kingdom of Bahrain, for the last many, many years, we believe that Bahrain should be very in the top of ICT. We're a small country, but with a great ambition, and we would like really to have an impact in this technology. For this reason, and I must state it very clearly, that the government of Bahrain reacted very, very fast to the corona pandemic. From the first week we've heard about it, I think we were successful in Bahrain, and in general we found that the e-learning or the electronic learning is in some even instances may even look better than the face-to-face. So immediately when the face-to-face teaching was suspended, it was immediately replaced by the e-learning. And of course, being ready, infrastructure is there, technology is there, and we have all different, whether using the Microsoft Teams or using Zoom or using big blue buttons, or even our modules, the model which we use, because all our courses, even previously, are put in models. And for this reason, we have not been shocked by what happened, but we've learned a lot. And the most important things that cooperation. So I would like really to take this opportunity and take it to the whole world, that it looks like sometimes we should convert challenges to opportunities. And I see very clearly that this pandemic, this corona, which is really very scary, may lead to improvement in the relation between the different countries, the different nations. And we should learn from each other, and we should know that we belong to one globe, and we must help each other rather than take this unfortunate pandemic and use it for politics reason, I think this is not the time where we should discuss where does it start, how it's going to end. I think this is the time where we should use this for our future collaboration. So I do believe Professor Seema, when she talks that different countries may have different circumstances. But at the end, I would like to tell her, we all live in one globe and we all look for better future. And we only go to universities and send our kids to universities for one reason, for a better future for humanity. And I would like to assure you, although Bahrain is such a very small country, but Bahrain is mix of many ethnics. Bahrain is mix of many religion. And this in Bahrain, we feel that we should convert this pandemic to the better. We should work together. We should really try to help each other. I thank you very much for this opportunity, because it's a message which we would like to take it to the whole world. First of all, e-learning should be always a part of the curriculum. And I think some even countries which were not, even supporting that will see that it's a necessity, it's the future. So even people who could not afford to go, or he could not afford in money-wise, they could not afford because of their geographical places, now the chance that they can learn, and the chance that we talk to each other actively. And it's the chance also, I have some of my students who came to me after 3 or 4 weeks of e-learning and said, can you do the whole years that way rather than just at this instances? So I think really we have a chance now to tell the whole world, let's work together, let's connect together, and let's do for one thing, the best days to come. We in this small country in Bahrain believe in that, and we believe that better days are coming, and let's work together and I'm hoping that this corona pandemic will not last longer, but let's be ready, because we never know after that what will happen again. The message which could go to the whole world very clearly: collaboration, cooperation, and one objective, a better life for all humanity. And let's not talk about religion or talk about ethnicity or talk about colors. This is not the time, even not about capitalism or the other way. That's not the time for it. Now it's the time to collaborate, to cooperate, and that the advanced countries collaborate with the advancing countries, with the other countries, because although now it looks so very, very difficult time, but still my worry, what happens if that coronavirus go to some of the very poor country? It started in many, many countries, but at least, the majority now in advanced countries. My worry, if we don't learn and we don't move very fast, that if it goes to the poor countries where there is wars, or countries where there is boycotts, or countries where we could be at greater trouble. So my message really, from my experience, I've been in education for the last 50 years, and I've worked in government, in public schools, I work in private schools, and I'm the founder of the first private university in Bahrain, which is Ahlia University. I always believe, and we should all believe, that we go to universities and learn for a better future for the human being, not for us only. And let's work together and take this opportunity. And it could be signs that we have to support each other. We have to work together. This is what, is wanted from us. And maybe we should listen to the cries of the other side of the people who need to learn more. And now this is the opportunity to reach them. You know, internet become very easy, and many people have it. Even sometimes very remote villages have it. So I think this is the time to talk about the 1 billion university chances, not only 10 million or 15 million. No, we could reach billions using the e-learning and using the proper technology, but let's work together. So my message to you, first of all, I would like to really thank you very much, Professor Alam, for this opportunity. And it's great to see that we're talking from different continents and we are learning from each other. And I think this is the message about the e-learning, and this is the message about the maybe even when the coronavirus goes, I think the ultimatum is at least to have it together, to breed the e-learning with the face-to-face learning and come all the time to support each other. So I really take this opportunity, طبعا, and I thank very much Professor Manuel for what he said and Professor Seema, and I support really that we should go more and use more technology, because we have been investing too much in technology. Let's now invest more in a human using technologies, you know, so because it looks like technology going faster than training ourselves and training the humans. So I think this is the time now that everybody should learn to use technology, and we need really to spend some more on a human using this technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. This is very comprehensive, expert, if you like, statement on this subject. Thank you very much. But that will lead me to the first question to all of you. But Professor Emmanuel, if you can kick the answer on this one. E-learning has always been criticized, or the critique of e-learning before this crisis, it is very expensive. And even if you approach any university to design a distant learning program, they will say, unless we have this minimum number of subscriber or whatever number of students, whatever, we can't invest. It's always about, it's being seen as an investment. So the question is got two parts, but let's start with the second part, Emmanuel first. The second part is saying, or the first part, what about the high cost? So my question to you, Emmanuel, to start is, do you, from your experience, and you're an expert globally on this area, do you see all countries in the world that have benefited the same from this technology and now is solving our problem in the lockdown? And secondly, is it really expensive? And to what extent do you think developing countries will still find themselves in another hurdle of development, facing new era of funding and so on? So if you can start this question, Emmanuel, please.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to my fellow speakers for their contributions, really enlightening. So yes, it's a very good question. And e-learning, like all education, if it's done well, is expensive. Education is expensive. But we need to think about what are the benefits that education, good, high quality education brings to a society. That's the way we need to look at these questions. When you look at reputable institutions across the world, they do invest a lot of money into delivering high quality education, and that's why they can attract so many students to them. But it is expensive. So when we think about online learning, there's always this tendency to think, oh, is that a cheap alternative? We shouldn't really look at it in that way. We should look at the availability of access that online learning can bring. So you can actually deliver education to a lot more people with largely the same amount of effort. So although it's expensive to do it well, you can reach a wider audience. So there are clear benefits. And other ways also to look at this is that I think what we need is much more collaboration between the private sector and the public sector in this, that there are some very clear synergies to be gained here. From my own experience, I've worked for over 20 years at different universities in the UK and other European countries, and I now work in the private sector for Cambridge Education Group. And what we do, actually, we bring the best skills from the private sector in terms of investment that can be brought in, and really skills about the agility to work and develop programs of study. And we partner with universities to get the best skills, which is the subject knowledge, the research, the really good practice they have going, teaching and learning, and we mix those sets of skills together into partnerships. I think that's a real kind of a positive way forward, because the private sector can bring a lot of energy into this activity, can bring investment that is required by universities, and develop high quality education products that can then be offered to a really global audience. Further benefits as well, I think we haven't touched on this well yet, is that if you have got truly international cohorts of students, but all those students, they're not in the same place, they don't come to one university, if they all stay where they are, spread around the world, but they're all together in an online program of study, the learning experience is actually much richer, because if you get them to work together, if you get them to collaborate together, all those students are bringing their own contexts in which they operate, and they open the minds of all the other students, because suddenly they are exposed to all these different ways of doing things across the world. So they're not all in one place. They come from different places, they bring their experience, their current living experience onto the learning process. And that's for the benefit of all the students. So if we do this well, yes, it is expensive, but if we collaborate, we can bring the prices down, or we can bring some more investment into the educational process, and the product will be very high quality and actually a very rich learning experience that brings all these different contexts from around the world. And it is a much more sustainable initiative as well. That's the other thing to consider. You know, in the past, international students who wanted to access high quality, particularly at university level education, they had to travel, find accommodation. The universities that they were coming to, they had to find a space on campus to do this. Then it's all the visa regulations. All of that goes away if you engage with online learning. If you provide a really high quality online learning experience, all of that goes away. No more travel, no more accommodation. You can bring loads of different people from across the world to learn together in a sustainable way. So there are loads of real positives to get out of this.
Okay, and Professor, sorry to interrupt you, but given that the economy of scale is important here, do you agree that this should be tackled from a national perspective rather than from an university-specific perspective, which means the whole country should consider investing in e-learning and remote or distant learning rather than each university will fight it itself, because that will bring the cost down, that can minimize the cost of technology. To what extent, what is your message here to governments or policymakers in higher education and so on? What is your, if you like, your message for them?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're making a very good point there, and Professor Alhawaj touched on this before. Is collaboration is key here. So whether is a government initiative or is a university initiative or a private sector initiative, collaboration is going to be key. So the policy coming from the governments, I think, needs to be a policy that encourages collaboration, that rewards collaboration between universities and across different geographies. So that's what the policy context needs to be, one that encourages that to happen. And for those countries that at the moment are very keen to develop their societies and give more access to education to their citizens, and traditionally some of those governments have been funding for students to go and attend university abroad in order to raise standards. Now, one of the things those governments need to consider is, should they be continuing to do funding in that way, or actually fund students to remain in the country that access the high quality education wherever that education is available to them. I think it will be more beneficial for those countries rather than to keep on sending students abroad.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me bring in Seema here. Professor Seema, from the developing countries' perspective again, and India is a very good example. To what extent, I know you might agree, you might disagree of how, say, India can deal with this e-learning as a national or not. I'm coming to Professor Alhawaj shortly on what he said. But what is the situation of e-learning in education, in universities in India? India got thousands of universities. Are they investing at a national level, or is each university doing it itself? Or because you have plenty of students already on campus, you may not necessarily need the e-learning investment. So what is the situation in India?
Yeah. See, like the question which has been posed about the high cost of using ICT and learning materials, what Government of India has done is it has created e-content with due partnership with the concerned agencies. For example, from 1st to 12th standard, NCERT books and CBSE books, these have been digitized, and these have been made available online freely under various programs. For example, Diksha is there, e-Pathshala is there. In addition to that, there is another program which has been initiated by the government for undergraduates and postgraduates, where on the SWAYAM portal 1900 courses have been uploaded. And in addition to that, government has been making use of different modes to deliver the e-content. For example, there is direct, DTH is there, direct to home. This 32 channels are there through which education content is broadcasted through these channels. So this is another method through which our students can be taught. And different countries in developing countries are going for different technologies. For example, I have noticed in some of the countries where internet or Wi-Fi services are not available or costly, or platforms, these video-based collaboration services are costly. There, government has been making use of texting, or encouraging the public to make use of apps, or it has been entering. For example, in China, government of China has entered into agreement with the telecom service providers. It has entered into agreement with even the platforms, e-learning, these digital platforms, so that services, as very rightly mentioned by the other two speakers, that this is a time for forging partnerships. Excellent. And partnerships will be between the ministries, it will be between the departments, it will be between the countries, it will be at the regional level, and it will be at the international levels. And I have noticed in some of the countries, for example, I think in the case of Austria, the government has entered into agreement with the publishers that they will be making digital content available partially free of cost. So there are several alternatives available, because as I said earlier, there is no choice which COVID has given to us. And very rightly mentioned by our speaker from Bahrain, that this is an adverse time of adversity. I also feel so, that adversity gives birth to greatness. It enables us to convert this adversity into opportunity. And I think all the developing countries, if they take the problems posed by COVID-19 as a challenge and convert that into an opportunity, I think all the countries can prosper over a period of time. And after all, countries like India don't have any alternative also. Because if we do not go for making use of e-content, already, you will find that learning crisis is there. Enrollment ratios are low in the country. Inclusive growth is, government wants to make the, growth inclusive, but there is a large percentage of the population which is not able to, even go to the schools, despite the fact several, policy initiatives are there. Therefore, I think ICTization is giving an opportunity to the government also, not only to raise gross enrollment ratios, but to make education accessible, at the same time more inclusive. And this is the case with many other developing countries also.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Seema. Let me bring another dimension, and Professor Alhawaj, maybe you can address this one. Now, the question we have here from the page, it will be great if expert can comment on when one goes to university, the person looks for exposure he gets on campus. You know, the cultural aspect. I mean, I have visited lots of universities in India, Middle East, and everywhere. And this cultural and the union, seeing your students, traveling with them, this is quite important. And it constitutes quite a large part of the students, if you like, aspirations to go to a university. In fact, it's become part of universities promoting their university. So that's question, Hawaj, given that you have been, like you said, 50 years in higher education, the discussion between students and teachers, also among students themselves. So to what extent do you think e-learning does not, as people, the critique of e-learning or digital learning, does not provide that part of fulfillment to the student's life?
Well, this is a very, very important question, really. I mean, we need, of course, to balance things, and balance is very, very important, because sometimes, when you talk about a certain dish to eat, the cook can smell. It's different than somebody who's looking it away, but technology is very advanced, that some of the virtual meetings, and we go beyond just teaching and lecturing. We go beyond that, advising, counseling, careers, all that is a part of it. So it's very, very important, of course, for the international students to feel different cultures together. And I hope that's your question. But what happens if there is a problem like what we have with this pandemic, that people cannot travel? We with the technology, and we are here. I have to go back to your question to Professor Manuel, because it's very, very important that agencies, ICT companies must really raise their bandwidth, must really be very cooperative, really, to make things and to use the technology. And that's what I'm saying, technology is very advanced, but we only know very, very little of this technology. So let's use it more, collaborate together, learn from each other, and I'm sure we will compensate, for the time being. Instead of me traveling and looking at an Indian university, I could really virtually go inside this Indian university and probably talk to them, even probably smell the atmosphere there. This is a very important. Technology will be doing that to us. But we go to that question of very expensive. Well, if we work together, nothing expensive. And let's really learn from what happened. Some countries, very advanced countries, I don't want to name them, were not ready health-wise, to the corona pandemic. They're very, very rich, but they were not ready and prepared. And that's what I'm saying. Teaching, education, learning should be the best. So we should use technology to give the best teaching and the best methods of learning. We should really work together and really be ready for any crisis. Okay, today the corona crisis and something like, what happened tomorrow if we have a different sort of crisis? We should be ready. We should invest enough money in technologies and in preparing human people to work for these technologies. And for this reason, I think, yes, it's a national duty. And I'll go even more than what Professor Manuel said, that government should encourage. No, I'll go more than encourage. Government should force universities, technologies, vendors or providers to go towards improving e-learning, improving digital learning, improving digital classrooms and take it beyond lecturing. We want to go beyond that. We want to go to advising. We want to go to guidance. We want to go to even our meetings. So I think really, maybe we should really be very positive, and let's convert what happened to a future world. And that's why I did say from the beginning, it's not a time to look at socialism or capitalism or. Let's work together, and with one goal only: better teaching. Because teaching and learning, after all, is the future for everything. Even these medical who were not ready in some countries mustn't have had the best teaching, because if they've learned proper teaching, they would have been prepared, So the universities, it's the one which produce doctors, which produce engineers, which produce everything. So let's give them really the greater part of our investment. So governments and countries and nations are really responsible for that, and they should pressurize their government to make sure that first goal is how to give them the best possible education. And I think having the mixed breed of face-to-face education plus the digital education or the e-learning or the whatever we call it, I think we should use it, and that will compensate for a lot of things. And of course, that doesn't deny us doing the other part. Of course, I need to go and feel people in their own countries, and maybe I would like to bring them. And I always used to remember, we should really support a push system where I pull people from India, and they should push them to come to me, and they should do the opposite. They should pull people from Bahrain, and I will push them to go to there. And this can be done between universities, between companies, between organizations, and let's force the governments everywhere, whatever the system is, to invest enough.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Alhawaj. Thank you very much. My time is really kicking off, and I've been requested to make it sure it will not go beyond 1 hour. Now, talking about the future, let's finish this conversation, which is very exciting conversation. You made it exciting. Manuel, what you said, Manuel, before was very interesting. Now, the future. Number one, you agree with me, all of you. We don't know when we're going to be even released from these houses. It's been locked down. Even the science now doesn't know, because now the evidence is keep proving everything is wrong. Young people have been affected by the virus. Older 183 have managed to escape it. So things are really very gloomy now. They don't know when they can even let us go out of these houses. The vaccine might take a year or so. But let's talk about e-learning. Now, we have all seen, as you have just emphasized for many years, Manuel, the importance of e-learning and remote learning. Do you expect, Manuel, and I'm asking you to also predict, the same like people, the government can predict, I'm asking you to predict if possible. Do you think governments, after they go out of this, after 1 year, for example, they will then come back and say, oh, e-learning, investment in ICT, in technology, in this has been very important tool, or it was a very important tool to help us went through that crisis. And we should take some of our GDP or really invest money? Or do you think they will say, okay, it's good, but we are in a very difficult financial situation. All countries are struggling, start to struggle now, even in the UK, going all, America, everywhere. So do you think countries will take the courage, despite we know the economic downturn we're all going to face, they will take it seriously and invest? Or do you think they will still be skeptical about investment in e-learning and remote learning?
That's an excellent question, Alam, and I think the answer touches points I've both my colleagues have made, Professor Seema and Professor Alhawaj. One very important point here is that investment, as you pointed in the question, has been devoted to technology so far. In terms of e-learning, there's been a lot of investment in technology, both at governmental level and other governmental institutions, but also universities, particularly here in the UK and Europe. There's been heavy investment in technology, but there hasn't been enough investment in people using the technology. What this crisis has demonstrated, particularly to the UK university sector, is that the technology was there, it was ready, and it was resilient enough, because everybody has moved their provision online, and largely that's been without problem. So the technology was ready for the challenge, but what they have realized is that they haven't invested yet enough in people using the technology, investing in their academic staff, being able to use the technology efficiently, invested in their academic departments to develop the pedagogical frameworks that are needed to make online education work effectively for students. So that's the next thing that I think needs to happen. Investment in how academics use the technology and create really good, high quality online learning experiences. Now, what do I think governments are going to do? I'm not sure about other governments around the world, but what I can envisage here in the UK is going to happen is that the government is going to say to universities, for the next crisis, you need to be ready. You were not resilient enough. So I imagine the governments are really going to put a lot of pressure on universities to say, we want to see your contingency plans, so that when the next crisis comes along, we can be sure that education will not get disrupted. And this is really interesting, because so I still have got a relationship with the University of the West of England, as you mentioned, and I work for Cambridge Education Group. And across all the students that I come across, the only students who haven't seen their education disrupted by this are the online students. All other students at any level of education, all has had their education disrupted to a certain degree. The online students haven't. They are the only ones who haven't been affected in educational terms by the crisis. So that has shown, again, universities and the leaders that actually they really need to think about this. Online learning is resilient learning, and all other kind of forms of learning are not that resilient. So I think the focus is going to shift, and online learning is going to be perceived very differently from now on.
Now, that's a very good, thank you very much, Professor. Now, Seema, I think this question is very good, and I would like you to address this question.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, e-learning will give opportunity to countries from developing countries, like African, like Shira has said, African countries and other undergraduate countries and developed countries, sorry. It will give them opportunity to go to university and so on, which is perfect, a very, very, very perfect question about the future. In 2009, I was invited to give a talk or in a debate like this by Cambridge University. And the question they asked me and other two development experts about, for developing countries, do we give them a mobile phone or a toilet paper? I remember this, was very interesting. What they meant by that, do we give developing countries financial aid to buy stuff, or do we give them technology and know-how? And this is exactly what this question is about. From your perspective, you are an expert in developing countries, you know the developing countries well. After this crisis, and we are, as I said to Manuel, we're all going to be struggling. India, China, everyone is struggling financially. Do you think developing countries, two parts, will take this as an opportunity to understand what's so relevant to their future sustainable development, and what is so important for them is to really build their capacity, ICT capacity, technological capacity, and also maybe you can make a call for all international development agencies, World Bank or European Union, when it comes to helping developing countries, they should seriously think about technologies. Maybe they will donate technology there, the technology Emmanuel was talking about. So if you want to help African countries, give them technologies, give them know-how, connect them, pay for the e-learning material, say with Cambridge, Oxford, and let that deliver to them. What do you think? I need you to use it as a concluding statement, because we're really out of time.
Yeah, I feel the developing countries, they have to invest on both. They have to invest on ICT at the same time on sanitation and hygiene, because ultimately COVID-19 has made us realize to everybody that whether developed or developing countries, that investment or infrastructure is not enough. Critical care facilities, healthcare facilities are not available even in the developed countries. That is why Italy became the epicenter and followed by United States. So it means the developing countries, they have to spend not only on the public infrastructure, sanitation, hygiene, but at the same time on ICT. Because prior to the disruption, which was caused by COVID-19, there were, we were talking about disruptions caused by globalization, by exponential technologies like fourth industrial revolution we were talking of, right? So if developing countries, they have to face the challenges which are being posed by technological changes, which have been smart technologies, which have been used in the developed countries, I think there is no other alternative but to use ICT even in education. Now, why these are important? Because whatever question was posed to you in Cambridge regarding sanitation and health, sanitation, hygiene, health facilities are so important, because if we want to develop, put developing countries on the growth path, on the recovery path, first of all, we need to build their human capital. And for building human capital, it is investment in health, which is very important. At the same time, it is very important that education sector must respond to the latest changes which are happening. So till date, if I talk of India, ICT revolution took place in India in the early 90s, but education sector did not make full use of it. It is COVID-19 which is bringing to the attention of the to the government, to the all the stakeholders, that ICT is so important for all of us, and if we make use of it, we can convert even adverse circumstances into opportunities for growth. And I think we cannot do without ICTization or without health.
Okay, thank you very much, Seema. Professor Alhawaj, I already went beyond my time, but I will give you just a concluding remark. You have talked and you have always been calling for international collaboration, people live together, and I like your opening statement, and we all know about Bahrain. Yes, Shia, Muslim, non-Muslim. This is what Bahrain is very good at. Now, let's take all this spirit into one final question. Let's think about this scenario. Manuel at Cambridge, they have the know-how. They are expert in I'm not saying we are the best in this technology in the UK, no. But people or universities, or say the know-how in the UK, and then in India, as an example, also Seema is known worldwide for capturing and embedding and absorbing cheap technologies. Most of our e-learning, public publishing, and all that stuff is being all done in India. Oxford University, Press, Cambridge, they do it in India. So to what extent do you think is realistically possible universities like yours in Bahrain or in Saudi or in other maybe other countries can use the know-how, connect together with the know-how source from Cambridge, using technological base which are much cheaper in India, and you in Bahrain work together so that you have your stuff. Do you think that realistically on the ground is possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's certainly possible. And, collaboration, again, is very important. I will give you an example. We have a joint program between Ahlia University in Bahrain and Brunel University in London, and another joint program between Ahlia University in Bahrain and the George Washington University in Washington. And when we joined the resources together, for example, the student in Bahrain who's studying PhD and getting a PhD from Brunel, while he is in Bahrain, he can access all the resources in Brunel University, in Ahlia University, and in George Washington University. And every single student from Ahlia can. So this is one sort of collaboration between Bahrain, Asia, Europe, London, and the United States of America, Washington. And it's working perfectly, very well. And we've been doing this for the last 15 years. We have a graduated student without resident in the in Britain and getting the PhD from Brunel University, mainly also women who were not able to travel. So this example is a great example of collaboration, provided we don't use each other. We complement each other. We support each other. And that's why I start from the beginning talking, let's not use it for politics reason, and let's not use it to look at people that we are beyond them or above them. Let's have one thing in our mind. We learn, we educate our children, we educate ourselves for only one reason, for a better human being. And let's not forget, we have other problems. We have the climate problems. We have so many problems coming. So I think, investing in e-learning is vital. Investing in education is vital. And I agree with the two colleagues, that we did invest a lot in technologies, and technologies are there. And alhamdulillah, when things have happened, we were ready. But humans are not, we have not invested enough in the human to use this technology. I give you an example, the very latest TV, when you buy it, only 3 or 4 or 5 of its capabilities. Let's learn the rest of the capabilities. So, for example, we have models, we use it in our university, and we have other sources also. Some of them are free, some of them, of course, with license. But did we invest enough money in developing these people to use this technology? The answer, I think, no. But I am really certain, in Bahrain, for example, my country, will learn from this coronavirus, COVID-19, because up to now, every step they have taken, it's in the right way, and I congratulate them really for that. And I think the other countries around us will go the same way. So we should really be a pressure group in other countries who wanted to make the word bipolar or the word two strength. There's so much talks about, is it after that China going to be the boss, or is it the United States will stay, or is it India, or is it? Let's say one thing. Let's hope after this, the human being will succeed in finding a new way of collaborating. And I think, and I repeat this again, we need to spend more money. We need to invest more in the human capital itself. We need really to equip them with what they are going to do, because after all, I do agree with Seema 100% that all others we should invest in it. But I tell her also, but everything stems from your education. So if you prepare proper education or right education, this means we will spend in other ways also. So I think the ultimate that we, and inshallah, we go out of this coronavirus safe. Let's hope we can see the numbers declining, because up to today, the numbers unfortunately are rising. But I could see some countries that have managed at least to control it. And one of it, Bahrain. In Bahrain, we've managed to control it to a certain extent. We are a very small country, but we need really to work with our brothers and sisters. We would work to our friends there together. And let's, for the time being at least, forget if I am in a capitalist or in another socialist, because this is now the time of working together as a human being. And I can see very happy, that we are talking now from 2 different or 3 different continents. I don't know if, India, to me, it's a continent by itself. So I think really, yes, the governments in many countries have learned a great lesson, and I'm assured they're going to support investing more in ICT to make sure that the education reaches everywhere. And it's a very, very important that message goes ahead. And this investment is the only investment which will not end it, because the more you invest, the bigger the picture will be, So investing in education, investing in technologies will always be rewarded.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's a very good concluding remark. Let me take this opportunity. I'm really, really grateful for all people who are watching it. And I can see there's a few I know from New Zealand, Libya. I'm very glad to see someone from Libya commenting. That means with ICT, we can still break barriers. I have seen people from all over the world here. Thank you very much. And those we couldn't answer the questions. We aim for 1 hour because they said that's what it should be. I would like to thank them. All their CV, their bio of these gentlemen and Seema are on the website, and the video, the final one will also be placed in the website. We will write a short summary of this, including their comments in a proper, nice policy brief, if you like, and we will publish it immediately. Thank you very much, Professor Manuel Frutos-Perez, who is the Director of Business Development from Sega Digital in Cambridge, and also a visiting professor in digital learning at University of West of England. Professor Seema Joshi, Associate Professor of Economics, University of New Delhi, and Professor Alhawaj, who is the Chairman of the Board of Trustees at Ahlia University, also the founding President. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for everyone joined us. And we have to stop here. And please do join us. We will announce this. There are plenty. I think we got like 40 people lined up, including academia, from businesses, from policy, think tanks, from the United Nations. It's really a big program lined up, and I'm very grateful for the 3 of you because you took the courage to go first. Thank you very much. Now people will learn from your technology. I have to stop here, and thank you very much. And I wish when we meet in few 3 days for the next one, Alhawaj wished the number of global deaths is really declining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best. Thank you. Thank you.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.